And we're going to continue with our topics this week. Craig, your topic this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you all know this, but we are all humans and things are ever changing.
What?
But, I, but just curious, if you were about to lose 30 to 40% of your annual spend and it just suddenly disappeared, how might that change your credit card lifestyle? Or how might your lifestyle change affect your credit card strategy? So, fun fact for those of you that don't know, just got a new job. I will be traveling a significantly less. And also, somebody in my house is starting a new program. So we are also, because of school, going to be doing less travel as well. So over the next 2 to 3 years, we're looking to being far more sedentary, at least from a work and just random one-off trip standpoint. And so my question to you all is, what do you do when you see that you have less spend and not necessarily from a, oh, I've had a catastrophic event, but I've had a lifestyle change. What do you do to change your setup? What aspects of your setup do you value right now? So, for example, what do you value most? Is it hotel status? Is it your ability to have a companion fare? And what would you keep? And what would you cut? What would you let go? So, let's start out, RJ.
So I think that there's a couple of areas I want to hit on. The first is I think that our lives change year to year more than we give it credit for. Whether it's as big as a new job or not, I think every year things are different. There's new streaming services we might subscribe to. There's new hobbies we might get into that are not just sit around Discord and talk about credit cards or video games, right? There are new things that come up. So I do think that every year on the renewal of a card, even a card that has fit into your life for 10 years, it's not a bad idea to see if that card actually does still fit or if it's just the inertia carrying you through. My Platinum renewed, I think about a month and a half ago at this point. I sat down and tried to convince myself to get rid of it, right? Like sometimes you have to go at it from that point of view of why shouldn't I have this card? Don't think about it as what benefits it. Why shouldn't I have this card? And sometimes it'll give you surprising results. Like I got rid of a couple cards. Like I love the green card, but I have hotel co-brand cards now that eat up almost all of my hotel spend. And what doesn't, I go through Delta stays for the portal for MQDs. So I use a Delta card because I get 3x Delta points there, right? So for me, having the green didn't necessarily make sense in that context where it did before. And that's a card I talk about a lot and I genuinely really like. And depending on what they do with the refresh, maybe I have it again. So going through that as time goes on, I think is important. So when something happens, you're more dialed into what you have, right? If I switch jobs and all of a sudden I had to start traveling, for example, which would be, I know the opposite of your point, but is the opposite of my current state, right? Like you're going from a lot of travel to less, I would be going from no travel to some. It would require me to think about, okay, what I have now is optimized for personal travel, but what if the place I had to go was a United hub and my airport flew directly to that United hub? That's going to change a lot for me, right? Because I might still keep some Delta, but now is it worth going to a hybrid setup and doing United for work and Delta for personal and going that route? Is it worth going United all the way? Those are things. I am the type of person that I literally sat down 2 weeks ago and I said, if I got rid of all of my current credit cards and I went purely cash back, what would it look like? And I am not a cashback person, but here's the thing. I talk about credit cards every week that I don't have, but we're talking about different topics, we're talking about different things. I, as somebody who does shows like this, right? And the live, especially the lives where people are bringing up cards that I don't have or my co-hosts don't have, and I know they're not necessarily going to bring up. I got to know these things, right? But what it helps me do is when something in my life changes, I have some adaptability already built in because I know which direction I would go. Wells Fargo is where I would go if I wanted to do cashback. They are. Like, Matt knows how much I wish I could make the autograph fit and the mental hurdles I have gone through to try to make that damn card fit. I have tried so many ways. It just doesn't fit, which is why I won't apply for it because A, Wells Fargo would say no, and B, it doesn't fit me, right? But that is a card that I want to make work. So I think when your life changes, there are cards that worked before that aren't going to work, right? So I think always having some level of editing and auditing your cards is good. And then when that big thing happens, there is additional editing and auditing that have to happen. I do think like some of it is also, it is easier, in my opinion, to keep co-brands than it is to keep like Chase, Amex cards, things like that. At the high level. I'm not talking like the Blue Business Plus or even the green, right? Those are Amex, relatively low annual fee green card, right? It's Look, it's Amex, right? But for me, like it would be easier for me to keep my Delta Reserve than my Platinum. Now it would be very hard for me to get rid of the Platinum, but it is still easier for me to keep the Reserve than the Platinum in their current iterations. We will see what the changes bring, but in their current iterations, the Reserve is easier, marginally, but easier than the Platinum. And I know Matt and I played the game. That is contextual. This is just vacuum. So it becomes that of if I'm going to do this or that, I'm going to look at those things in a different way. And look, I think that some of it is just like, what do you want to keep? If it's worth to you keeping the flexibility of having a companion pass, then if you use it, you're getting value out of it, right? That's the thing with the Delta Companion Pass is if you use it, you're going to get value because there are very few flights you're going to take in first class anywhere from Delta point to Delta point that are under 650. So you're getting value, right? And if that's it, if that's something you think you're going to use, even if you're not traveling as much, keep the card. So I know I'm going around and around, but I think that's what you do when this happens. You have to go around and around with yourself. You have to make the pros and cons list and then go think of something else and then come back to the pros and cons list and go around with yourself again, right? It can't, very few people are going to be like, all right, I'm going to keep this and this done, not going to think about it again, going to cancel those cards or downgrade those cards, and I'm done. Sometimes it actually helps to ruminate on things and to go around in circles with yourself and to think, okay, what would it look like if? What would it look like if I kept this card? What would it look like if I kept this card? What would it look like if I kept these three cards but didn't keep this card? Like sometimes those circles that we drive ourselves in are good. Like most Saturdays, I go for a drive. I live in the country. There's a lot of nice 55-mile-an-hour roads where I can just go for a drive and just let my mind sort of drift. And sometimes it lands on credit cards and sometimes it doesn't, but my mind will drift. And those are the times you want to have your credit card planning strategies. Nobody else around. Maybe if you have a play or two or a spousal unit, like you take them with it and you just chat. Like nothing, you don't need the numbers in front of you. You don't need 8 spreadsheets. Just talk, just think, just do whatever, but allow yourself to have those moments of round and round because sometimes those are the moments that are actually going to make you figure out the thing, not the deep spreadsheets of 1.34 versus 1.43. I know we like to think, and I'm a spreadsheet fan, even though I'm not a cents per point devotee, but sometimes it's almost always the times I'm in the car that I come to the final decision versus sitting in front of the spreadsheet.
No, I think that's actually very insightful. And I find myself having decision fatigue to your point, and I think that is very much so where we are right now. Player two and I are trying to figure out what we actually value, and less so right now. Do we really care about airlines? Because we are moving to the RJ sense of I'm just going to pay for what I want, but we are really loving some hotels right now, and that is where we are spending the vast majority of these trips. But before we hop in any further there, Matt, what about you?
Yeah. I'm thinking about this topic. What sprang to mind was Lonnie's process of applying for a card, where if he could talk himself out of it, it probably meant that the card wasn't worth pursuing. With this sort of taking the inverse, if you can talk yourself into getting rid of the card, it's probably worth getting rid of the card. If you have significant change to a particular category of spend that was a huge category and is now not going to be a huge category, you can move off of cards that specialize in that category, whether it be through multipliers or travel day, making travel day more bearable, or lounge access to particular lounges that you're no longer going to be visiting with the sort of frequency that you once were. If you can talk yourself into getting rid of a card, that's probably the first card to get rid of. If you're having a harder time convincing yourself to get rid of a card because of whatever other reasons, right? Like those cards then in your first round of culling, assuming you're going to be culling cards, if your first round of culling is, I can easily talk myself out into getting rid of cards X, Y, and Z. Cards X, Y, and Z are the first cards you have to reevaluate. Cards Alpha, Beta, Gamma are going to be, you can talk yourself into keeping Alpha, Beta, Gamma, but it's going to be a bigger stretch. And it's easier to keep those cards if X, Y, and Z are gone, or X is gone and Y is kept and Z is maybe moved to a different card, or whatever your thought process ends up being. If you are prioritizing a new form of travel, like dive into that form of travel and keep that form of travel, obviously, right? So if you're saying that airline cards aren't going to be an area of concern for you for the next little bit, you can ease back on those, whether you have the ability to turn those cards into other cards, depending on the issuer. One issuer in mind doesn't really care what you do with their cards, except maybe it sounds like they might be. Or, you can just pop them all down to no annual fee versions of the cards, where you want to keep the credit line open, but you don't necessarily want to pay, I don't know, $650 annual fee or $695 annual fee if you're paying that for, say, I don't know, the United Club card. If you're prioritizing now hotel cards, prioritizing those, and cutting around the other edges with cards that give you other travel benefits that aren't going to be as needed going forward. So if Lonnie can talk himself out of a card, you should be able to talk, and you can't talk yourself into keeping a card. If you can't talk yourself into it, you're probably best served letting that card go. Not just speaking directly to you, Craig, but like to anyone else. If you can talk yourself into getting rid of the card, if you're in that, I can get rid of 2 or 3 cards, the first cards that you can talk yourself into getting rid of because they no longer fit, those are the cards that are going to be the easiest to let go. Me, I only hold 2 annual fee cards. I will potentially maybe add more in the future if Wells Fargo wakes up, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. Or if the Sapphire Preferred is suddenly a card worth grabbing, in my opinion, to me, because it'll fit me better, great. But if I can talk myself out of the Sapphire Reserve, cool. I'll talk myself out of the Sapphire Reserve, I'll downgrade it and go from there. If I can talk myself into, if I held the American Express Platinum, if I could talk myself into downgrading the Platinum to the green card because it's no longer going to serve what I need it to do for me, I would do that. Whatever the first cards are that you can talk yourself into, go from there. You don't need to hold on to cards just in the off chance that maybe I'll use a credit. If you're not going to be organically using the FHR credit on the platinum, it's not really worth holding the platinum if you're cutting back on other forms of travel. If what the platinum does with FHR can be replicated to an extent with, say, the Hilton Aspire, right? Keep the Hilton Aspire, you can downgrade the platinum. Again, I'm just using cards I know you have in your arsenal, Greg. I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
But I do think that if you're, as things change for you or for other folks, reassess your cards. You don't have to go spreadsheeting. You can take the drive that RJ takes to clear her head or clear her wallet of cards, whichever. You can talk to your spousal unit. You can talk to yourself about it. You can talk to folks in the Discord, or try and get as much information, or try to get as many viewpoints as you can, because points acquisition is super easy. You can always acquire points. It's just going to be a question of the point utilization after you acquire the points. If I'm not using it for flights, do I really need to prioritize holding it for X, Y, and Z reason? If I'm not using it for $100 every 6 months at Saks, do I really need to? No, I'm kidding. It's just a silly credit on the platinum, but the FHR credit is definitely something to consider. It's going away, I'm sure. The FHR is definitely something to consider. Travel bank, if you're flying a lot, or if you're cutting back on flying, do you really need the travel bank credit? That's something to consider. Or not travel bank, sorry. The airline incidental credit on the American Express Platinum that usually finds its way into United Travel Bank, even though you don't fly United. Go figure. These are the first questions you ask when you start doing that reevaluation. If it's worth keeping, you can talk yourself into keeping it. Great. If you can talk yourself into getting rid of it, it's the first card to go. It's one of the first cards to go. Yeah. As you reevaluate, and evaluate one more time just to be 100% certain.
No, absolutely. And to your point, and just context, new job, spousal unit, player two, whatever your preference is, starting a graduate program. And I just know that we are not going to be doing the travel that we are doing right now. I was having a conversation with Lonnie and RJ. The moment I got this new job, 23 trips for the remainder of this year just went right out the window, right? And that then puts into question, do I need lounge access? Probably not. Is it nice to have it for the few trips a year that we'll go someplace to visit a friend domestically? Maybe, but do I need it? Who knows? And so then it calls into question, these cards are going to get more expensive. And if the platinum goes up to $895, like we think, or $995, or whatever the insert blank new number is, do I need a platinum card as opposed to just having a gold and a green? Or at this point, I have an autograph. Do I need a green? Yeah, it's fair.
If you want MR
But
points, yeah.
cash back, you can still buy them at 2 points of 2 cents
Can't
a
buy
point.
MR points.
No, but you can buy Hilton
Rakuten.
points.
You could, well, yeah. Rakuten's not. Anyway,
Throws
I
a
was just
wrench at
saying.
your whole thing.
no,
But
the caffeine is wearing. Uh,
But no, to your point, I was just saying, like, we're moving towards a primarily hotel setup where the Hilton Aspire and more than likely the Bonvoy Brilliant will be center points of things. I have still not decided if we already paid our old annual fee. I highly doubt that I'm paying $1,000 or $990 for the new Sapphire Reserve. That's just absurd for me. And we will see because obviously the Platinum functions a little bit better with kind of plug and play with those two systems. But we're thinking, hey, we're not going to be doing a lot of travel. Delta has the most flights in and out of Indy. What are we doing? How are we really thinking about where we're going forward? And it's a lot of cost cutting measures and really taking a hard look to say, RJ, to your point, do I want this or do I need this? And I lounges beforehand were a need because if I'm flying 30, 40, 50 times a year, it's nice to sometimes just grab a snack and get a shower. But if I'm flying 10 times a year, 20 times a year, it's a pretty big difference then.
Here's the thing,
So
though,
we shall see.
that I think is important. It's okay to want things.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
and it's not more, this is more towards the listeners than to you. I want lounge access. It is not, to me, it is not a negotiable. Like, I will have lounge access. I will always have a card that will get me into a Delta and or Centurion lounge. There is no future unless I am the head in the Futurama glass and I am not, I can be put in the storage hole. I'm not gonna have a life where I don't have have lounge access, right? That is purely a want. That is purely a want. But guess what? I want it. I have the card for it, and I'm good. So it's okay. And can I justify it the way you did for 50 flights a year? No. But guess what? I want it. I have it. So if you want something, that's okay. You don't need, like, your mother is not checking your homework after this, right? You don't have to go in front of the credit card high commission and explain why you have these cards. You can want it just to want it. I have the Surpass. Do I need it with the Hilton Business? No, but I want the card. It's going to become an Aspire, so it does have a purpose, but I want the card. I use the card. It's 1 Hilton point more when I use it for dining. But guess what? I want it. I want to use it instead of having everything on the Hilton Business, so I do, right? So it's okay to want things. And I want the listeners to understand it is okay to want things. Not everything has to be austere. Also, if you get rid of a card and then 2 years later go, I really want that card back, you can reapply for it. You might not get a welcome bonus, but if it fit really well into your life and you made a mistake, you can go back to it. It will be okay.
And just to be clear, 100% agree with you. I was just talking about from my sense,
Oh, yeah,
we
absolutely.
hold a platinum and a sapphire right now because, hey, I want lounge access for work and where we were, but like considering now, and again, I think there's for my use case, there's a difference between want, need, and this is a little absurd. It's absurd for me to hold a Venture X, Sapphire Reserve, and a Platinum, and right now a US bar to say, oh yeah, I'm traveling that much. I'm not traveling that much anymore, especially when we're not also then putting that kind of spend on these cards. And again, using cards as intended. What are we really doing here? Because I will say, more and more that Venture X Platinum combo is just looking so absolutely fantastic, paired with some Hilton Aspire and Monboy Brilliant, or just one of those cards. But we shall see. We shall see. But thank you both. I appreciate your insight, and I will actually be reaching out to both of you about some future changes here. So be ready.
Absolutely. And just remember, if the head of the credit card high council dies, you do not get named Chadich to help in arbitrating the replacement. It's a joke for like
I
5
love
people,
that.
but
2 of them are here.
yeah, to the 5 of you out there, you're welcome. All right. So thanks, Craig, for your topic.